So I had time to process overnight. Welcome to the channel. I had time to process overnight what ChatGPT and I worked on yesterday for day one of this series called Can AI ChatGPT really help you or be your CMO, CFO, and CEO or business strategist? And right now I'm going to be asking ChatGPT to actually be a CMO. And I want to take some information and some time to look at the ad spend and the ads that we ran in January to get us to the $76,000 month in sales that we had, with that cash flow of around $39,000 actually come in cash, right? And because what we're finding is I want to get to the goal by August 11th of 2027 that there's $100,000 cash sitting in the bank, not just me buying the assets that I'm buying and taking care of all of that and living my life, but to actually have a savings goal. And I want to do it just with this business, not with any of the other businesses that I run. And I'm doing that specifically on purpose because it'll allow me to take a little bit more of a back seat in the other businesses that I run. And that's why we're doing this. So I'm going to actually pull up ChatGPT now. And we're not really arguing, but we kind of have some arguments. If you know that ChatGPT often has some drift in the way that it operates and how it looks at things. And so I actually have in my ChatGPT set up projects that are specifically for the business. And then I also have, there's some GPTs that are set up. One of them is called the Ads Analyst. And what I did was I fed it a lot of good information around our business model. So I'm actually going to go into my ads manager now that it knows how much money that we've made. We did for January, and I'm going to go and just go inside here and look at each challenge separately and then look at the challenge as a whole. And the way that I do it is I start at the campaign level by taking some screenshots of what ads we ran for January, and do that because I like to know what our baseline was. So let's do this. I'm going to do started running those ads December 30th, it looks like, and I'll run it and see what we've got going on. A couple of things that happened as we've been testing our ads is that last year I took over my actual ad spend up in January. So I started running ads for this business August of 2023. And I let an ads manager run my ads until April 30th of 2025. And so for almost months, not close to 18 months, someone else was running our ads. I found at that time it was $5,000 for their management fee and then $5,000 for the ad spend. So I was really heavily $10,000 a month spending on specifically just ads without ever having made a dollar first, which doesn't sound problematic I started wanting to know what was actually happening when they were doing that ad spend. And I just felt like I could do a little bit more, and I wanted to understand exactly how my business ran, because ultimately it is the ad spend that drives the revenue into the business. And I'm still one of those CEOs who I write all the checks. And I believe very strongly that you should know what you're getting, what is getting you. Now, did I have less stress at the time that I was letting the ads manager do that? I did, but I started to recognize that the ROAS just wasn't what it was, right? People don't remember or don't get. Return on ad spend sounds amazing, but what if you're able to get the return on ad spend without having that management fee? And how much learning curve did I have to actually tackle in order to get after that on my own? And I found that I could do pretty daggone good at it. So now fast forward from April of 2025 until February 2026, I've learned so much. And now I consider myself an expert, not as ads management goes for anyone who can run any ads for anybody, but I'm an expert in running ads for my business. And that hits a little different, right? So now when I started running those ads last year, I took the budget way down from $5,000 a month to about $2,000 a month. And I found that I was able to keep the revenue pretty stable. than what they were doing, spending the $10,000 a month. So that kind of hit different a little bit as well. Like, why would I give them $10,000 for the same revenue when I can do $2,000 and keep that revenue and even surpass that revenue? It just stopped making sense for me to do that. What I recognized over time was, because in the beginning when I started running the ads, there was a lot of drift even with the ads management, because a lot of that money that they were spending was kind of on testing. I was deliberate understanding my audience and what resonated, and I watched it like a hawk. So while I did duplicate what they did in the beginning, I started branching off and doing a lot of that on my own, which then allowed me to be really present in what was resonating and what wasn't resonating. And I just didn't have a whole lot of that drift and a lot of that testing. I was able to turn things off and, save $6 on one ad, or maybe $1,000 per ad campaign. And as I said, we were spending a lot less, half, and we get some of the same results. Now, once I started really saying, I'm gonna go out on a limb and start figuring out, doing these, duplicating so much and actually strategically putting together a plan for that, it got rough. Last quarter of 2025, it was not the best, because I was really trying all of these different things out. Top, middle, bottom of funnel, customer acquisition ads. I was doing all these things that were like, this is gonna really work, all to get me to this place where January got us back on top again. Now, I really think I have a command for that. And we're gonna look at that theory now on the ads that I actually spent in January. So I'm looking at ads that we ran for leads, because we look for leads in my business. That's what we actually look for. But I also have started dealing with some lead or some traffic and some retarget campaigns and engagement campaigns, which has been good. But right now we're going to just focus on what it was for us to get the lead in our business. And so if I look now and I pull in what we did, so we had a total ad spend of that first launch in January of $2,998.12, which is amazing. I'm gonna actually go ahead and grab a screenshot of that, because that's the information I'm gonna feed into ChatGPT to do an analysis of the actual first campaign in January. So I'm gonna copy this campaign view, and I'm gonna go into my GPT, which is called the Ads Analyst. I'm gonna go ahead and upload that. I'm gonna go back to my ad sets and look and see for that first campaign what we did, and then go to the ad level. So in the ad level, I'm gonna grab what we ran in ads. Okay, so one of the things that we also figured out was we were not optimized properly in Meta. And I just decided that we needed to be more deliberate about what we were actually going to try to, look at in a really strategic way. And a lot of that happened because of ChatGPT. So I'm gonna grab this last one for ads. I grabbed screenshots because it's the easiest way. I've tried to download the CSVs to do that, but ChatGPT doesn't particularly like that. So the screenshots typically work a little bit better. I can tell you that first launch was awesome. I'm gonna put information in terms of ads is concerned. We ended up getting 1,093 website leads on that first campaign. We were paying $2.74 per lead, which is great. It did get some purchase conversions on here. It's not accurate because we had a lot more sales than it is actually accounting for, and I don't know where that drift came from either. But we spent that, and I'm gonna go ahead and add in what we spent on reminders, also spent on retargeting off this one and this one as well. Let me click here. So actually we spent right at $3,170.84 when it comes to adding in the actual retargeting and engagement ads that we ran on that first challenge at the beginning of January. So I'm gonna grab that screenshot as well. So Chat kind of has of what that looked like. So I can talk to Chat and say, these are the screenshots from the first launch in January where we were beginning to run re-engagement ads, retarget ads, and also our lead campaigns. I've uploaded all the screenshots for you to look and see exactly what you would be and act as our ad manager and our business strategist for ads, maybe a CMO, and give us what we did well, what didn't go so well in terms of what that Meta should do. So I'm asking ChatGPT after I give him all the information, and we'll get that analysis right now. So he said, okay, and I say, as a CMO of growth review, January 1st launched Meta ad system, what worked, what didn't, and what Meta should be doing next. So let's look and see what we got. Strong first launch structurally, excellent signal generation, strong creative engagement. I love that. Spend 3170, website leads, average CPL, which is cost per lead. It's 12 purchases, but we had more than that. It tracked $21,947, but we did a little than that. CTR overall was 3.9%, very healthy at $29 to $32. So this was a cold strategy for cold audiences, retargeting and re-engagement blend. It knows which one our top performing creative, which was had 584 leads. Cold. We also sent some ads to the list, which did really well, just as a lift. Those who would be our hottest. It says spreading a budget across too many ad sets for this spend level. So we did have multiple ad sets. There is a strategy out there that says you should have one campaign, one ad set, one ad in each ad set. It just depends on, people have different thoughts about what that would look like. It did cost me a little bit more. It's our warm and our underpowered. We did not do a lot of that. We put like a $10 budget. Our audience is so small at this point, it didn't make sense for me to try to add any more to that engagement. The frequency of them seeing the ad would have been, just crazy. Now, actually, I'm gonna go ahead and ask it to look at the second launch. Now let's look at the second launch numbers. So it looks like we spent $2,979.07 on this ad launch. I'm gonna grab the screenshots for it, Control V. For those ads that we ran for this campaign, for this one, we actually had a total of 985 leads, which is pretty good. We were just shy of $1,000 or 1,000 lead, what we wanted. But I did actually send out, to lift up the 1,000 people, I sent out some emails to them. What we did was we added in reminders and retargeted people who had actually watched our videos. And then we did some reminders saying, hey, make sure you go check your email. And so for those, we ended up, for total, we spent $3,143.60, which I'm not at all mad about that. Let's not only compare, but spend time first, the numbers for the second, and then do a comparison. What ChatGPT tends to do is try to figure out what you need to know or what you want to know and be all nice about it. I just want the data. So you have to tell it specifically what you're looking for. Everybody talks about the prompts. I do want to know, just give me the numbers. Data. I don't need you talking to me about the other stuff. So the second launch, $3.02. So we did have an average cost was a little bit more. It says 7 purchases. We had more than that. We had great reach frequency was great. CPM was great. It's giving me my average now. Yes. And now it's asking, do you want to compare? Yes. Let's compare. And I'll update you on the sales that we generated later, because Meta doesn't have the truth. Okay, so let's go ahead and do a comparison just from an ads perspective. Because again, I'm trying to make sure that we literally are understanding how January worked, why it worked, why we had $76,000 worth of sales, what it looked like to get the lift on actual cash that came in the first month. So I want to do that. So spend was flat, 3170 first launch, 3143 second launch. Website leads 1,093, launch 2 is 985, about a 9% dip. Okay, so let's go ahead and do sales. So I have that already for January from yesterday. So I'm gonna actually pull up and add in the information from January sales. So take a look at these spreadsheets, verified dates. I think these are our January numbers for sales from Spiffy, which is our cart system, and also our January sales from our Stripe account. Just take a look, make sure that you use the spreadsheet properly and understand exactly what we did in sales and what came in. You should be able to figure that out. And then the dates are anything after January 15th be attributed to the second launch, or I should say January 20th is the second launch. Anything before that date would be attributed to the first launch. Okay, so I just sent that over to chat. Now he might not be able to attribute it to the meta, but he can attribute it to each launch, which I'm okay with. Notice how I'm layering it in. I found over time that if you layer in the information and not give it too much at the same time, it doesn't get that drift and doesn't know what you're saying and gives you terrible numbers, right? So right now, I'm giving it to him in layers, so it can really track looking for and not get lost. Otherwise, you have to retrain and re-say it again, and it just gets terrible and tedious, and I hate it. So, okay, so all three January revenue split by launch using your cart system Spiffy as a source of truth. Great, source of truth. And then it has the product sales where it's for the product confirmation, subscription versus one-time context. Doesn't need that for the totals or whatever. And then it has the Stripe balance summary, which is it's seeing what happened in Spiffy and what happened in actual in Stripe. So it looks like for launch one, attributing total revenue of $24,215.51, 81 transactions. And then for launch two, it's saying total revenue $16,001, 45 transactions. Total January revenue was $40,216.51, which is great. But that is our gross activity. Of course, net sale after the fees was $39,252.01. Exactly the number that we got yesterday. Our launch one did generate more revenue. Launch two had higher revenue per buyer. You can see that is great, but sales were higher. Let's ask how much we made in sales total to include the accounts receivable for payment plans. So I want to know, we have payment plans going in because what it should say is that we have about $32,000 coming in March and April, February, March, and April because of the lift that we had in terms of product sales for the entire month. So let's go ahead and analyze that again. And really what we're doing is saying, okay, how do we make sure that we know the data, the metadata, how that translates, what it looks like for our ROAS and all of that, which makes sense. So it's saying sales value, 45,000, and the other one was 30,000. Yeah, so 76,237, which is right. That's the number we got yesterday. So this is all tracking. Love that. Total buyers, 40 new sales. Cash in January, total sales, 76,000. So there's $36,000 remaining accounts receivable to collect. Now, in my world and online businesses, we know that some of that is going, that $36,000 are going to be people who are going to drop off, non-payments, all of the things, which is fine for me. But that lift alone is wonderful to have that for a forward-facing month. So now I think at this point, I'm going to ask Chat, tell me as a CMO and our CFO, what questions am I not asking? What am I not looking in terms of data? Which is me using Chat to try to get after how good can this be in helping us understand our businesses. So I'd like for you to be the CMO and the CFO and strategist. And what questions am I not asking? What questions am I not putting out there? And what data am I not tracking to make sure that we're successful in February? Because we are going to turn on ads this Thursday, which is about 4 days away because it's Monday now. Yeah. So we'll go ahead and see what Chat has to say about that. Now remember, there's an ads analyst, GPT. It's set up to actually understand that I want to talk about ads. Of course, it always gives you that fluff. It's going to answer in 3 layers. The questions you're not asking but must, the data you're not tracking but need by Thursday, and the decisions February ads should be optimized for, not just leads. Okay. So which ads create buyers within 7, 14, and 30 days? That matters because February optimization depends on cash timing, not just total lifetime value. As a CFO, I'd ask, how much AR can we float comfortably? How long before cash collected catches up to spend? At what point does ad scale stress cash flow? See which step in the funnel actually limits revenue. You are focused on ads, but ads are not your constraint right now. Based on the data, traffic is cheap, leads are abundant, conversion is happening. The missing question is the bottleneck traffic, lead quality, follow-up, checkout friction, or capacity. If ads are not the constraint, scaling ads won't scale revenue. I love that this is the conversation. What does success in February actually mean? You haven't defined this clearly enough. Is success more leads, More buyers, more cash collect, heavier AI, lower refund risk, faster payback. What metric matters most in February? Cash, contract signed, or long-term lifetime value? You cannot optimize Meta without answering this. And the data I'm not tracking but must track are leads to sales attribution, internal, not Meta. I love that they're asking this. Let's go ahead and add in where the attribution comes, where we know who actually registered for our challenge. So let me go ahead and grab that. And I'm actually going to give it people who showed up to ours or registered for our Zoom and actually showed up that potentially were buyers and how many days that they showed up. So let's go ahead and upload the attribution report. It will be from GHL, where we actually run our business through. That's our CRM. We'll also give it the spiffy orders for the people who actually bought. And then I'm going to give it the registered people or the people who registered for our Zoom. And I'm going to give him the report that says how long they were in Zoom, so he can actually give us the actual person, how many minutes they were in there, and do all of the things, which will be really great. January 6th through the 9th. All right, so I'm going to upload those reports as well. So what chat should be able to do is it should be able to look at this information from all the days. So let's grab, okay, ChatGPT, you should be, from these reports, find this report that has the actual people who bought any of our products for the beginning of the month. You should have the attribution report for the ad in which each of these orders came through, or the person. You should be able to either see the name or the email. Then you also have the registration details from each of the days of the 4-day challenge and the launch. And with those details, I'd like for you to pluck out the person who registered, what ad they came in on, the person who then showed up to the Zoom meeting, and then the person who actually bought from the spiffy order. Hopefully you'll get all that information. You can just add in the total amount of minutes and the days that they actually showed up in a chart. Being very specific here so it knows exactly what I'm wanting to get after right now. And we should be able to see the buyer journey from this. It might take a little while for it to analyze the information. I just gave it a lot, so let's see what it finds out. So it says, this is a very advanced attribution request and you're right to want this view, but I need to be very clear, precise, and CFO honest with you about what's possible versus what's missing before I can give you a chart that looks authoritative but isn't. I attempted to programmatically join all 5 systems you uploaded: spiffy orders, buyers, spiffy attribution report, ad person, Zoom registrations, attendance day 1 and day 2 through 4. The Zoom registration CSV is malformed. It does not parse correctly as a structured CSV. Okay, I get it. He can identify the first 50 from spiffy orders, attribute buyers to ads from spiffy attribution, but measure Zoom attendance for buyers. From that file, it says which buyers attended, how many days out of 4, total minutes. That's not cleanly. Okay, so that's fine. So that's fine. Ignore the registration then. Use the attended file instead and match. It's saying that it's having a problem looking at all the information, trying to pull and extrapolate the data. Now, I could probably try to force it to figure out why, but at this point, who cares if they registered or not? They bought, they attended. Let's find out that information. So I'm good with that. Don't worry about the registration. Just use 2 minutes attended. Let's see if that works for it. Okay, so there we go. It's got the buyers, their ad when it was available, and the total Zoom attendance time. No registration data was used, no assumptions made. Cool. Give me the list. Remember, we are tracking the first launch first. Because basically we're trying to figure out the buyer journey. This is probably the biggest deal about crunching the numbers that ChatGPT will have a big issue with, which I'm not upset about. Again, I still need the numbers. This is how I'm gonna fast forward and have 76,000 months for the rest of the year. Okay, so buyers only, exactly as what requested. First launch only. So it's telling me what I'm looking for, but it tell me where is the list. Where's the list? You haven't provided he hasn't given me the data. What were you looking for? Give me the data. You're right, thank you for calling it out. Here's the actual list with the data. Okay, so it's giving me the buyer level list and giving their total minutes attended. Some of the things where they're missing the attendance is because sometimes they give us a different email when they register for Zoom, which sometimes is problematic, but not all the time. So here's the full spreadsheet. It's our buyer. So this is why this list matters. This is your buyer quality data sheet. It shows that 300, 450 minutes plus on attendance correlates with higher contract value and payment plans, which should really directly inform February ad messaging and optimization. Here is second launch info. So I'll go ahead and upload those screenshots, upload those participation as well with total minutes. And so let's stack both in a, and can you by chance use the attribution to find the buyers in the GHL? Here is the GHL export for launch 1 and 2. Maybe try to find the email or name to match the spiffy, and then match attribution report now. So let me go ahead. All right, so let's see if we can grab this information, and this will be the final task that we ask Chat to do today, because after I do all of this data analysis, I'm wore out. But what I'll end up doing is taking this information back, looking through it, and then figuring out what kind of other question. Why GHL attribution did not match buyers. None of the buyers' emails appear in the GHL attribution file. That's why attribution fields come back. So let's actually ask it to just tell us where, what the buyer actually came from. Find buyers, but let's not ask it for that. Well, instead of us looking for the buyer in GHL, which doesn't need the connection, how about we use where the actual buyer came from the actual ad? That's what we really want to do. So if you see the buyer's name, then it has the campaign or it has the UTM or anything for what ad we actually came in on, that would be an amazing thing. I don't really need to look at the revenue. It says, this is the right reframing. And what we actually want is buyer to ad origin, not buyer GHL. And it said that we can define that, which ad did this buyer come from. You don't need GHL. You can use Spiffy's own tracking closer to the truth. In the Spiffy data, there are 2 different attribution sources: orders, UTM fields. Yes, build, buyer, ad origin using Spiffy tables. Well, match the name of the buyer from GHL attribution email where the contact was created. So Chat is getting into the weeds because I'm not specifically asking it for data. It says fire. This worked, and it's the data set you've actually been trying to get the entire time. Thank you for this clarification. Matching by name, not emails, was the missing key. See how you can do that? I had it by email, and it's trying to find email, but really it needed to be the name. So let's look and see if it's able to pull that information. Okay, so it says it has a deliverable. Let me take a look at it. Sometimes these deliverables that it gives you is not all what it's cracked up to be. Okay, it says that it has everything, the full buyer data. I don't really deal in too many of Chat's downloads. They're just never right. So I'm just like, just make me a table. Yeah, you're right. Thank you for catching that. Let's reset it as cleanly, visibly, and correctly. Okay. You are missing some sales in these lists. Please look at the Spiffy sales data from both launches to get all sell and buyers. So it's missing some people. You're right. Thank you for stopping now. You caught a real issue. Got it. So remember that I asked for who attended with attribution and matched to GHL. Those are subsets, not a master list. You're asking for a master buyer ledger. You're right to do so. Got it. So we want the buyers, all sales. I want the Zoom if I can have them. Yes, let's do step 1, which is rebuild the master buyer table using Spiffy. Then 2, layer in the Zoom minutes, GHL contact recreation, and add. Yes. So then it says, but never at the cost of removing buyers. Wonderful. Yes, this is what I'm asking. And then step 2, that is exactly what I want. Okay, so now I think we're getting somewhere. So it knows now that we want to know where they're from. That's our real buyer journey. Everybody in launch 1 came from cold, and they were all basically the same ad. And then in launch 2, they all came from campaign, but surprisingly, the ad is different, which is great. Okay, this is an actual great, this is gonna help me figure out what we need to run for the launches. Got it. So now I have information, tells me exactly which ad each buyer came from, what campaign. So what you would want to do is you want to go look and see what that ad copy was, what the creative was, and if you're not going to use the same creative, at least keep the same hook, the same ad copy, and maybe switch out the creative and maybe test 1 or 2 more creatives with it. But this is the actual winner, which makes perfect sense for us. So my next thing that I'm going to do for tomorrow is to actually, I want to go in and I'm going to pull a list of our hottest people who actually registered and did not show up. And also the people who registered, showed up all 4 days and didn't buy, because that's a hot flipping list. And they should get an email that says, hey, we want you to come to a one-on-one with me, because maybe that one-on-one will push them over the edge to get me some sales. The last thing I got to do is tomorrow I need to start working on our ads, because I really need to get that creative ready, because if you don't know, launching meta ads is a deal. Now, how do I rate this one? It took us about an hour. Matter of fact, I think it's about an hour we've been on this call. Of course, I'm gonna edit this down a little bit just because you don't have time to be looking at me while I'm sitting here arguing with ChatGPT, but ultimately we got the information that we wanted. So it did very well being a CFO and a CMO today. What do you think?